I'm going to read out this portion of Thomas Cookson's review for Earthshock. It's quite long, so that's why I'm just reading this portion toward the end of it. Of course, while Earthshock was fresh, spontaneous, and dynamic, its season 21 successes were just tired and depressing and leery, and far from feeling like a race against time. They felt like just killing time by having the Doctor uselessly procrastinate until everyone's dead. Perhaps it's just 80s fandom's nature to hold iconic downbeat endings over everything else, regardless of whether the apathy and character incompetence surrounding them supported the notion that the characters were affected or changed in any way by the event, regardless of how stupid they had to be to not see it coming and not take obvious preventative measures for it. Thus, one of popular culture's greatest intellectual heroes became reduced to a complete moron, Doctor Who became a string of incoherent, charmless tokenisms that fandom just accepted. Eric Saward can just about pull off that more superficial formula in the art of visual storytelling. When his focus is on his own work and he keeps his fingers out of other scripts, J&T stories are usually a drunken car crash. This is a rare example of a sober and vivid one. The Cybermen leaving their own troops on the Frida Faven deliberately crash has always bothered me and made little sense, but otherwise the story mostly coheres, and Saward's handle on the regulars is anomalously strong. Opening of Adric wanting to return home does actually give poignancy to how he will never get home. Unlike in Resurrection of the Daleks, the presence of the Doomsday Bomb actually gives the Doctor a good reason to stay in one location, procrastinating on chasing the Cybermen's ship, keeps him thinking actively to save the day. As for his killing of the Cyber Leader, I think it's handled very well. The situation demands immediate action against an overpowering enemy. The Doctor's first shot is one of self-defense, the next of a Doctor being aware of the Cyber Leader's agonies and trying to make this as quick and painless a death as possible. That's very Doctorish in my book. In stark contrast to Eric's later Resurrection of the Daleks, where the Doctor uses corrosive viral weapons to inflict needlessly prolonged, agonizing death upon his enemies. This is the exception that disproves the rule, proving you could reassert suspense via establishing a stronger adversity, not by senselessly weakening the hero. This actually tests the Doctor to his limits rather than forcing false limits onto him. He relies on all his quickest wits, whilst they're still present, to jam the bomb or make the antimatter barricade. The Doctor loses with a valiant fight to an enemy that's actually worthy of beating him. An enemy that briefly seemed worthy of superseding the Daleks if later Cybermen stories hadn't treated them with contempt. It's so successful at making the Doctor fallible, it begs a question why it kept needing to be done again. It's generally accepted that Classic Who practically owed its post-Tom Baker survival to this story, mainly because it's impossible or even too depressing to imagine the era without it, but if you look closely you can see how these became the very foundations 80s Who was built on, and how inevitable it was that it was all going to quickly fall apart.